Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missing Links podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Dukowitz, beat writer for Zone Coverage. I cover the Minnesota Lynx and the Minnesota Timberwolves over there, and my life has just gotten a lot more free time in it to talk about the Minnesota Lynx. So let's get into it. Minnesota Lynx are 6-0 after a let's call it a middling. We'll call it a middling game. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't a good game, which is somewhat to be expected. They found out that Napheesa Collier is dealing with some knee pain. My understanding is that it's not going to be something long term. At least that's what it sounds like so far. More of just a precaution of, she's had plantar fasciitis issues. Everything in your lower body is connected. If your knee's messed up, sometimes you put different pressure on your foot. You don't need that plantar issue that kept her out of a few games last year flaring back up. Also, knees are weird. Sometimes a little thing can turn into a big thing. Vikings fans saw that with JJ McCarthy this last season. Karl Anthony Towns had it for the Timberwolves, I think 2 years ago, where it was just his knee's a little sore, and then it was a torn meniscus. Nothing like that I've been hearing so far about Fee, but nonetheless, they are in Phoenix playing the Mercury without Napheesa Collier. They got some good news on the Mercury side that Alyssa Thomas was not going to be playing tonight either. So, Fee at this point in her career is probably a bigger loss than AT, but kind of evened out in the grand scheme of injuries. Game will just address the elephant in the room. When the Lynx needed shots most, Courtney Williams and Natisha Hiedeman came through. Courtney Williams, Coach Reeves said it after the game, her only three that she made the entire game happened to be a huge one to tie the game up at 71. Natisha Hiedeman had a pretty interesting play, let's call it, out of timeout action where she kind of shot this weird left-handed floater that ended up going to the Mercury. Mercury call a timeout. K-Mac steals the inbound pass, pretty much passed it directly to her. It's always interesting listening to athletes after the game talking about the plays, because K-Mac was kind of like, I remember them running that play against us last year. So I just thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. And that try turned into a steal. No timeout from Reeves. She lets the play develop as it does. Ball gets passed up to Natisha Hiedeman. Passed up again over to Courtney Williams. Courtney kind of hesitates on a three. T resets in the corner, gets the ball in the corner, hits the three. I did just post Natisha Hiedeman's reaction to it on my X, which you can just tell how much this team genuinely loves each other just by how Kayla McBride immediately puts her head in her hands as soon as T goes to start talking about the play. And Alana Smith immediately puts her head down on the desk as soon as T starts talking about the play. And that's how this team is. They know each other so well that they know T is going to say something hilarious. Prepping, T followed through by saying a pretty hilarious breakdown of the play. K-Mac almost choked herself. She was laughing. And that's this team, 6-0. They're doing it the same way as last year. A lot of just gritty wins that they pull out at the end. They for most of the game just seem unflappable, whether it's foul calls they're not getting, whether it's physicality on defense, whether it's pace coming and going. They just really don't blink, which was exactly how the team was last year. They had 8 people on their team that could play in pretty much any situation. They never really felt the pressure, and that was again tonight. Like I said, Courtney 0 from 3 to literally the 30-second mark in the fourth quarter, and then she hits a huge one. T makes a pretty crucial mistake on an ATO play, and then the next time she touches the ball, she's passing it up to Court, resetting and hitting a 3. Let's cut to a quick ad read a little bit earlier in this show, and then we'll break down just kind of how the game progressed and more of just, the comeback and just how weird this game was overall. But let's run to a quick ad break and I'll be right back.
It's playoff time in Minnesota. The energy is electric, the stakes are high, and every move counts. You can feel it, right? The momentum, the nerves, the is this really happening buzz. The spring real estate market in the Twin Cities has the same kind of energy. Headlines are flying out about interest rates, the economy, and what's coming next. It's exciting, yes, but also confusing and a little bit overwhelming. Whether you're thinking about buying, selling, or just wondering if that Zestimate is lying to you, don't overthink it. Go to wolvesrealtor.com and connect with Heather. She's not just a fan in the stands, she's on the court every day with Exit and North Star Realty, reading plays, adjusting the strategy, and helping people make confident moves, not panicked ones. Even if you're just curious or unsure about the next step, wolvesrealtor.com is where you start. No pressure, just real talk, real answers, and a game plan that actually works. Because when it comes to real estate, just like basketball, having the right coach makes all the difference. Go check out wolvesrealtor.com and tell them Matt from the Daily Wolves sent you.
Thank you, Matt, for the ad read. Let's get into the game a little bit. Overall, just observations I had of the Lynx game. This offense grinds to a halt without Napheesa Collier. Yes, there was some players that were missing open shots. There was a lot of maybe questionable foul calls under the rim, but I think overall it kind of the officiating kind of evened out. I mean, K-Mac ended with, let me scroll up here. K-Mac ended up with 9 free throws. They had the despair that, I mean, Lynx had 18, Mercury had 14. It was a weird officiated game, but I think it evened out over the long run. I think to me what stood out more was just how this team just really lacks space when Fee's not on the floor. When Shepard's in there and theoretically you have 4 shooters around her with, BC, Smith, Williams, Hiedeman, K-Mac, you'd think there'd be more space, but it really seemed like because there wasn't anyone on the Lynx that the Mercury felt like they had to double team, they were able to just play straight up and not really help off anyone too much. They switched pretty much every pick and roll. Court was really struggling in the mid-range and from 3 because they were just switching on the pick and roll. They weren't going under, which when it's a Court and Fee pick and roll, they go under the screen to try and hedge Fee off at the basket, because if Fee gets it in the paint, it's kind of an automatic bucket for the Lynx. When she's not out there, it just grinds. And I mean, just looking at the general stats, they shot 36% from the field, 28% from 3. That number was actually 21%, or excuse me, 22% before Courtney and T hit those threes to end the game. I mean, 15 turnovers by the Lynx is also pretty. I mean, this team just seems like it's going to turn the ball over quite a bit, but 15, you'd like to see that closer to like 10 or 11, especially without Fee in there, who's usually good for 2 to 3 turnovers at this point. But it's just an interesting game. You could tell this team wasn't expecting to play without Napheesa Collier. They hadn't been like game planning a ton for not having Fee in there, and it really just messed up the offense to the point where, I mean, the bench didn't even really get that much run. Samuelson got 14 minutes. She was relatively ineffective, 0 for 4 overall, 0 for 3 from 3. They pretty much, it seemed like anytime she was in, they tried to get her switched onto Sabali as fast as they could and then attack, which Samuelson's held up pretty well defensively so far this season, but she is not the best defender on this team. Peely, I thought, had actually really good minutes. I tweeted about it at halftime that like she seems a lot quicker, and not like straight line speed run, 100-yard dash, but like moving side to side. She seemed quicker. She was in spots more regularly where she could kind of muck things up. She was also rotating a lot better when they did switches. She wasn't just getting burnt by. I was pretty encouraged by Peely's minutes. And then Miller and Badien unfortunately didn't really get too much run at all. Badien 0 for 2 from the field again, played just 2 minutes. She is a player that I thought was really going to make an impact on this team because she fits kind of the Alana Smith role of being able to shoot threes, rebound well, be a rim protector. She just hasn't really proven that yet. And a lot of it is just she fouls a lot in her short tenure in the W, and then she hasn't really been able to hit shots. So hopefully someday that turns around. Diamond Miller, I was a little surprised only getting 3 minutes. She didn't really impress too much, had a couple of turnovers. One of those turnovers, it looked like she was trying to give it to Peely for a dribble handoff, and Peely wasn't expecting it. I mean, that's just a communication thing. You got to make eye contact or say whatever the dribble handoff word is in their offense so that Peely knows it's coming. And maybe she did, and we just didn't hear it. But Diamond got yanked pretty quick after that, which unfortunately, that's just kind of the sign of a player who hasn't played a ton of basketball in the last year with this team, which last season she was injured. There's going to be moments like that, but when you're trying to come back from down and trailing most of the second half, you just can't afford to put Diamond back in there. As far as the starters go, Kayla McBride was solid, 20 points, 9 of 9 from the free throw line. She admitted it after the game. It's still a work in progress, getting back into basketball shape, getting back and accustomed with the Lynx. It sounded like, well, she was gone from the team. She didn't do a whole lot of conditioning. It's still not been from the team reported what she was dealing with as far as personal issues, but it sounds like she wasn't able to get out there and scrimmage and do conditioning drills. So she's still getting back into shape. Had a really good first quarter though. After that, she was kind of MIA until that steal, which steal was great, but the thing with K-Mac that we've seen over the years is that she's usually more consistent, where she's getting her points kind of evenly spread out, and then maybe she'll burst out in the fourth. The other gal I thought had a really good game was Alana Smith. 19 points, 4 rebounds, no assists. She didn't particularly shoot well from 3 tonight, but she was battling the entire game, which I feel kind of bad, like I might have jinxed it. The last home game I asked Lan, does it feel kind of nice playing next to Jessica Shepard, so you're not having to deal with all of the physicality? And she was like, yeah, it feels really good. I can walk again the next morning. And then she gets matched up against Kalani Brown, and she's getting knocked to the ground. And if there is something for the Lynx that they might need to address before the end of the season, it's still that size. I mean, players like Kalani Brown are just going to give them problems for the entire season. They just don't have a 6'4", really bulky post player out there, and it shows. I mean, Lan and Shep are great, but when those matchups are out there, they just have to kind of hope they can draw fouls and get them out of the game. But Lan, I thought, had a really good game. 8 for 15, had 4 blocks, again, no turnovers. There is another conversation to be had about Courtney Williams, but we will have that after another quick ad read here. And then we'll touch again on Natisha Hiedeman and how she closed the game out.
What's up, Minnesota fans? Many of you know that I help fans get tickets into games, and now I'm giving you an opportunity to get tickets to any sporting event you want, not just basketball. We're talking football. We're talking hockey. We're talking soccer, man. Any sporting event that's in town, or maybe it's a concert. All you have to do is use my promo code, The Daily Wolves, all caps, on SeatGeek. That's right. I've partnered with the SeatGeek app. You can download it on iOS or Android devices. You can find it on your web browser at SeatGeek.com. Check it out today. Enter my promo code, The Daily Wolves, and get $20 off your first order.
So Courtney Williams of it all. Let's get into it. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, had 5 points in the fourth quarter off of a pretty big 3 to tie it and a midi. She also had some very impressive misses, which we've now seen Courtney a lot. And Courtney is a player who Cheryl has recently dubbed Dory from Finding Nemo, because she has a short-term memory. And I think that goes to play with her confidence. And I also think it goes to her sometimes just shot chucking, where she doesn't realize that like a Bridget Carlton hasn't shot in 6 minutes, or she doesn't realize that she's ended possessions 3 times in a row, or that she took the last possession and shot 5 seconds into the shot clock, and now everyone has to hustle back on defense 2 possessions in a row. And that's more of what I saw tonight. It was quick jumpers, not the most timely jumpers, and kind of not spreading the ball around to everybody, which when you don't have Napheesa Collier, you then have to really rely on, you know, the team as a whole. When your head of the snake is out, you got to rely on everyone 2 through 7 that is going to be able to be kind of a equal part in this win. And, you know, that's, to me, my read on that is Courtney Williams has only been a point guard for 2.5 seasons. Last season was her first season in Minnesota playing point, and she played point in Chicago. Every other year of her career, I would imagine, dating all the way back to middle school, she was a shooting guard. She just shot the ball. She got to her spot. She hit those shots. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just another sign of kind of where she has to grow over this season going on for this team to like get to that championship level. I think the team is more talented than last year, but also New York is looking really good this year. Natasha Cloud is a monster addition for them, even though they lost Vandersloot. I do think that this team does have some places they have to grow. And one of those places is Courtney kind of understanding shot timing in a shot clock, understanding who needs the ball and when to move the ball. Also had 4 turnovers again tonight, which after the fast start to the season, it's been kind of tough to see the turnover woes come back. But again, they don't need Courtney to be perfect every night. As long as she's perfect on the nights they need her to, which I understand kind of sounds counterintuitive or oversimplifying it. But tonight they got the win with Courtney going 5 of 18. Tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but when they play Golden State, they might need Courtney to go 7 for 9 and have 25 points. And Courtney has shown that she has that ability where she can come out there and just hit buckets and really make a name for herself in the mid-range, which she's been doing her whole career. The other gal, I mean, Natisha Hiedeman, game winner aside, really good game. 22 minutes. Cheryl decided to close with her in court to end the game. That is something Cheryl has talked about wanting to do more this season if somebody on the wing is struggling. But, you know, she is also a very undersized point guard in the W. And when you have her next to court, it does show that size, where a player like Sabali, Alyssa Thomas, if she was playing, would probably have tried to get them really into the torture chamber type of moves off of switches. But Heidemann hits the big 3. I think, again, to me, what meant more than that was she whiffed on that floater out of the ATO prior to the 3. She didn't get down on herself. She didn't try to force the issue. She could have tried to force that play in the fast break. Instead, she passed it up to court, reset in the corner like you're supposed to do. And then she hit the big shot to win the game. There's just a lot of things in that I genuinely love about Natisha Hiedeman. It's just a selfless play. It's not getting down on yourself. It's having confidence. And it's kind of how this Lynx team is as a whole. There's not a lot of people on this team that get really down on themselves. They all talk pretty regularly about being, you know, being prone to overcoming adversity, we'll say. They're very hardened. This is a team where the top 6 minutes getters all returned. And it's showing so far this season. Whereas Phoenix might be trying to figure out some things, figure out rotations, trying to figure out how to play with each other. The Lynx just know how to do that. And they execute at such a high level that when they really need those plays, they know they can do what they need to do. They know that people are going to run the fast break right. They know that when push comes to shove, they're going to be in the right defensive positions to get a steal. And if there's hope for the Lynx that, you know, 6-0, but none of them have really been like a blowout or a game where they could take the whole fourth quarter off. That's the hope, is that as the season goes on, Carly gets more comfortable. Jessica Shepard gets more used to playing with the first unit, and they just kind of continue to grow. Next game for the Lynx is Sunday against the New Valkyries. not the the new team, the Valkyries. I don't think anyone on the Valkyries is particularly new. They have been struggling so far this season. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They're an expansion team. It's kind of to be expected. They're 2-3, which doesn't give justice to how many problems they've been having. I mean, think of, you get one new player in a starting five, and that's hard enough. This is a team that's basically a pickup team right now, still, trying to figure out how to play together. I do want to put Ethan O'Brien's comments up here that liked Hiedeman's comments in her post-game interview about the team chemistry at the end. Thought it was a good example of why KD would be a good fit for the Wolves. I mean, I do agree. I think KD is a pretty good chemistry guy. I don't know, I'll talk on the Lynx side of it. Hiedeman is one of the leaders on this team. I mean, in training camp, it was Courtney Williams and Natisha Hiedeman. That is who everyone talked about. If you needed anything, whether you were the last invite to training camp or you were Diamond Miller trying to crack the rotation, those are the two people that were always there to kind of give time. And that's not to say Napheesa Collier, Smith, or any of those people aren't good teammates. It's just those two are the most vocal. They are incredibly personable. I mean, Natisha is just a bubbly, extroverted person. She's always pleasant to be around. Courtney is constantly talking. She's always pleasant to be around. And it rubs off on the team when you're going into work every day and two of the people you work with are just always in a good mood. They take criticism from Cheryl really well. They don't lash out after criticism. They take players aside and talk to them about things that they could be doing better. They're just both awesome leaders. And then you look at this team, they just all genuinely like each other. Again, going back to the press conference where a question gets asked to Natisha Hiedeman, and before she can even say a word, Alana Smith and Kayla McBride both have their head in their hands oh God, what's going to come out? And that's this team. They just know each other so well. Again, looking ahead though, Golden State, I do think that should be a win. If I was a betting man, I would say they probably let Fee sit out another game just to kind of get her knee 100% right, make sure there's nothing going on there, make sure that everything's there's no structural damage. I'm sure if she needed an MRI or something, they would have done it and already reported on it. But to me, the more important game is going to be Tuesday at home against the Mercury. They then play the Dallas Wings in the Storm. Might as well let the new expansion team be a get right day off for Fee. I mean, Alana Smith's also been kind of banged up, so I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to rest her as well. But that game will be Sunday in Golden State. Not as late of a start. I think it's a 7:30 start. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a 7:30 start. And we will be live again after that game with the Missing Links post-game podcast here. Again, I'm your host, Andrew. I write for Zone Coverage. This post-game podcast, that was difficult to get out this time, is going to be running after every single Lynx game this season, except for the two games that they will be playing while I am in Summer League. And if you're a Wolves crossover fan, I will have plenty of content out from Summer League as well. Until Sunday night, though, go Lynx.